welcome. We hope that your first taste of Singapore was great and that you will continue to enjoy your stay here. This year marks the 6th edition of Apex Business IT. Each year, Apex Business IT reinvents itself to the next level, being better and more exciting than the previous year. And this year, we will promise you the same. Now, I do recognize some familiar universities from registration yesterday, and on behalf of my organizing committee, I would like to welcome you back and thank you guys for your utmost support every year, for coming back every year. A round of applause, please. But also to mention that this year we have 3 new universities who have never participated in Apex Business IT before. And I would like you to invite to join me and welcome them. Technical University of Munich, University of Alberta, Colorado State University, and there's a 4th university from Singapore, National University of Singapore. Welcome. Our committee has spent the past 9 months preparing for the next few days. And it's been a long journey. Ever since Apex ended last year, we started again for the next year. And it's an ongoing cycle all the time. And we hope that everything pans out well for the next few days and that you guys have will really have a comfortable and enjoyable time over the next few days here in Singapore. And also, on that note, many of you guys have actually spent months preparing for this competition. And over today and the next 3 days, you will be definitely stretched to the limits, both mentally and physically. And all this kind of exhaustion might overcome you. But I urge you all to stay focused and test your limits. Learn much from your fellow participants and coaches, and interact with our judges, who are actually senior people in the industry. And last but not least, have a lot of fun. You are in Singapore, this is the land of heat and rain and humidity. No, jokes aside. Have a lot of fun. We really want you to enjoy yourself, and if you need any assistance at all, please find someone with a red tag and voice your complaints. We are a country that loves to complain, so you're given a free pass to complain when you're here. Okay, now, before we start, you will realize our panelist is not here. I'm the only one here entertaining you. So just a few stuff, okay? Now, I'm sure most of you have received your lanyards. You have? Now, flip over to the back of your lanyard. Now, many of you may be wondering what that sticker is there. Okay, you will realize there is a login ID and a password. This is actually to grant you wireless access in SMU. So, let's all test it out right now. Take out your mobile phones or any device that can connect to the internet. Find the SMU Visitor Network. Okay. Key in the username and password and accept the terms of agreement. Sorry. After you select the SMU Visitor Network, go and open a browser. Safari, Google Chrome. Yeah. Open a browser and go to any website and you'll be prompted to this page. If any of you have any problem, our handsome tech director is standing on your right. He is Leon. And our other tech director is sitting there comfortably, looking very chill. Yeah, if you have any problem, just raise your hands and they'll come and assist you. Everybody okay? Do note that like any other network, if all of you log on at the same time, it will definitely be slower. And we apologize for that. Okay. It's either you guys gave up trying or you guys are successful. Okay, I hope you guys are successful. If not, you can find him anytime. Okay, so next. Now that you're all connected to the grid, or you will soon be, you will be able to participate in our next activity. For those of you who have been religiously observing our Facebook page, you realize that we, like any other event, have created our own hashtag. Hashtag Apex Biz-IT. Okay, so to make this hashtag campaign work, we really need your help, okay? So, step 1, take photos. You all have smartphones, right? Okay, take them out, take a selfie, take many selfies. Okay? Can everybody cooperate with this? Right? Okay, come on, guys. I need some feedback. I feel a bit lonely here. Yes? Excellent. Can be better though, but first try. Okay. Yeah, and no food and drinks inside the auditorium. You can consume them outside. Tell a joke. Come on, I think you'll do better here with William. I haven't woken up yet. Oh, yeah, a little bit. Okay, so apparently our panelists need a little bit more time. So if you guys need a toilet break, now would be a great time to go. Because I'm telling you, for the next 3 hours, you'll probably be sitting where you are right now. Yeah, so the washrooms can be accessed through this door, the door up there. Yeah, and you should be able to find it. So I'll be back in a while. Thank you. What the case team is about, what the case team is. You are encouraged to raise any related questions and tap on the wealth of our panelists, tap on the wealth of experience of our panelists during the question and answer segment after the panel discussion. To kickstart the competition and this morning's workshop, the Dean of the School of Information Systems, Professor Stephen Miller, will be giving the opening address. Dean Miller is the founding Dean of the School of Information Systems at Singapore Management University, a position he has held since 2002. Professor Miller started his professional career as a faculty member at Carnegie Mellon University, SMU. He held senior positions in technology, management, and consulting with Fujitsu Limited in both Japan and the US, RWD Technologies in the US, and IBM Global Services, where he was the Chief Architect Executive for Business Innovation Services, Asia Pacific. After joining SMU, he has been concentrating on developing all aspects of the School of Information Systems, including research strategies and capabilities. Interact is also currently a steering committee member of the Life Labs Urban Innovation Platform, amongst many others. I would now like to invite Dean Miller on stage. Dean Miller, please.
Thank you. Welcome. For some of the faculty sponsors, welcome back. Some of the schools, a number of schools we're welcoming for the first time. I see some familiar faces in the audience. The students, of course, I think in most cases, we could have a few students who are here for the second time. Most of the students, of course, will be here for the first time. So we welcome you. So why do we do the thematic workshop? Of all the students sitting here, it's like, what glimmer of information can I extract and I have some advantage? You know, oh, what's sort of leading me in the wrong direction, and what's about the case, and what can I do to win? All right. Some of that obviously is ticking through your brain. At some level, as my son says to me, chill out. Okay? And the whole thing about Apex is participating helps you in your professional development. Now, everyone wants to do well in the competition. Being here and sort of observing and listening, and obviously by doing and participating, it will actually sort of open your eyes to future possibilities about what you could do with your career in the years to come. And in that sense, you just sort of want to do the best that you can, but the real takeaway from Apex isn't whether I'm third in notebook. Now I know you all compete actively, you know, so, but that's what this thing's really about. And that's why we start off with this workshop. All right? I'm going to get into the workshop theme in a second. Someplace around, I think you folks may have this nice little blue and gold book called the Apex Biz-IT Global Case Challenge. All right. So I think we can say we really deliver on that this year, and we've done a pretty good job on delivering on that every year. Our analysis outputs span IT solution designs, but they've got to be linked to the way you integrate IT and business in the scenario of the case that you don't know what the case is yet. But IT solution designs, the whole notion of how will this project work? How will this project work? Spreadsheets and cost and benefits is a far cry from how will this project work. Any idiot, sorry to say, can sort of rig a spreadsheet that, oh, the benefits look bigger than the costs, right? But a spreadsheet looking good and a project that will work are very different realities. And when you finish school, the key thing is, can you be part of projects that will work? That is it. That is sort of the heart of it. I mean, and this is sort of training for that, learning about that. So your outputs include spanning IT solution designs, project plans, transition plans. How do we get from here to there? You don't have a lot of that experience in your head when you're a third year, fourth year undergraduate. And I mean, you have some, like I have a semester and I have the first week of class, and I need to get to the last week of class and the deliverable. You've been through cycles like that. But relative to the scale of things you do in your internships or full-time work, what's the strategy for the transition, right? And what's the risk of transition strategy A versus B? And that's integrally designed or linked to what the strategy thing is that I'm trying to solve and the choice of the technology, right? And then on top of that, the cost-benefit analysis, right? So it isn't just, oh, I need the best cost-benefit analysis. It's the linking of all of these things. That's what makes Apex cool. That's what makes it interesting. That's what we mean by integrating information systems in business. All right? Enough on that. That's why you're here. I mean, if you didn't sort of weren't into that, you wouldn't be sitting here. All right. Now, let me say something about this theme. Okay. You read bits about global economic this, global economic that. All right? The economy's up, and these things, we're sort of immune to it. You know, nobody really stops and pauses for a moment and says, oh, that means 1 million trucks had to carry stuff. That means things, we're sort of immune to it. You know, nobody really stops and pauses for a moment and says, oh, that means 1 million trucks had to carry stuff. That means, so what I'm talking about is moving goods. Moving goods. And it's a phenomenally big system globally. For somebody who doesn't come from UPS or THL, or someone who doesn't do something like a global semiconductor firm that sort of brings stuff in and sends stuff out. The scale, it's something of that scale and complexity right here on Earth, and it's around us all the time. You see it. You see the trucks going. You pass the harbor, but no one stops to think about this, right? No one stops to think that every time there's a thing about trade statistics, it means all this physical activity is going into moving this stuff at a scale that is literally, cargo planes is they consume a lot of fuel. They consume a lot of fuel, right? Now, if we didn't get that fuel, you couldn't go to the grocery store and go shopping. You couldn't buy your clothing. You couldn't live in the house that you live. I mean, untrivial consumer of global energy and of leaving an environmental footprint. All right? So the theme of the panel, interesting correlation between the theme of the panel and the theme of the case, although I'm not saying anything about the case. So the theme of the panel is green logistics. So, it's a word like competitiveness. Okay, we sort of get it and we phrase what it means, but it sort of means everything and anything, so you don't really know what it means. Right? It's sort of buzzword only, just to sort of point you in a direction, but it doesn't mean anything specific. All right? So we have Roxanne from Compound. So they're a end user company, if you will, in this network, and a major player in terms that they work with logistics company. Stefan is from UPS that we all see, right? So we think brown, we think orange and red. Orange and red, I mean, sorry. Yellow and red. But in a very special way. Bob works at an institute called the Logistics Institute. How appropriate is this, setting.
Okay, thank you, Dean. Now, before we invite our panelists up, there's one more important presentation. Our next speaker, Mr. Stefan Shablinski, being a very experienced industry personnel, will give you an overview of what we'll be talking about this morning, just to set you all on the right tone. Mr. Shablinski is the Director of Sustainable Supply Chain Solutions at DHL Supply Chain Singapore Private Limited, and he also holds the role of the Director of the Green Transformation Lab. In his DHL role, Stefan is leading a collaboration between DHL and Singapore Management University called the Green Transformation Lab, which focuses on education, research, and best practice development, and the creation of innovative solutions to help organizations transform their businesses towards sustainable green growth and drive change in supply chains. Stefan's recent achievements in the sustainability arena include contributing to carbon accounting standards developed by the World Economic Forum, World Business Council for Sustainable Development, and World Resources Institute, and the Green Freight programs in Europe and Asia, and developing green solutions for the logistics industry. With that, please join me and welcome Mr. Shablinski on stage.
Good morning to everybody. It's a wonderful morning of a wonderful week ahead of us. I'm very excited about this week, and I see my presentation on the screen but not on the wall. So thanks for the introduction. I don't think I have to say more about myself. What I would like to do in the next 10 or 15 minutes is to give you some background information about sustainability and supply chains or logistics, as my job title already says. Almost there. There you go. Right, so as I said, I would like to provide you with some background information that might also be useful for the panel session that we have later on after my little presentation. As I said, I would like to talk about the energy dilemma and the reason why companies are interested in green logistics. What you see here on the screen describes the dilemma a little bit. While we see on the left-hand side that we are exposed to declining energy sources, it's expressed by the fact that about 2/3 of the oil-producing countries have already passed their peak of oil production. We have also observed in the past 20 years that there's a growing demand for energy. And in the past 20 years, we have seen 50% more energy consumption. So between 1990 or 2000 and 2010, we have seen 50% growth in energy demand and energy consumption. And when we look at Asia Pacific and when we look at supply chains in Asia Pacific and logistics in Asia Pacific, we can also see that in Asia Pacific in particular, there's more money spent on logistics compared to GDP than in any other regions around the world. So there's a pressing need not only to look at sustainability and sustainable supply chains, but even more so to do this in Asia Pacific. Now one can say, okay, as a logistics company, and I'm a representative of a logistics company, we could say, well, the growing oil prices that we are going to see coming up in the next years is something that we can pass on to our customers. It's not our fault that oil prices are going to increase, so why don't we pass on these oil prices and the increasing transportation costs to our customers? Well, this is not the problem in itself, because we could do so. But what we see in the future is that customers may think twice in the future and see transportation costs exceeding the cost of transportation of manufacturing, so that they might want to relocate their manufacturing sites closer to the consumer markets. So at the moment we see that many of the manufacturing sites are located in Asia Pacific, while the consumer sites are somewhere in Europe and the US. So we have seen many very long supply chains, and this might change in the future as transportation costs are going to increase, and it might be more economical for companies to relocate their manufacturing sites to closer to the consumer markets, which also then might have a big impact on societies, on globalization that we have seen in the past decades. So this might have a big impact on how societies will work in the future. I hope I managed to the next page. Yeah. So when we take a closer look from economies into the cities, what we see in the cities is a similar picture. We see cities being more and more crowded in the future. There are trends that from 2 billion people living in the cities, we will see 5 billion living in cities or urban areas by the year 2025. This urban growth will be 4 times faster than the rural growth. So there's a trend for people to move into the city centers. And because of this, we see cities more and more exposed to environmental damages, be it healthcare issues, be it congestions and other issues that we see because of this. And the third thing that I would like to share with you is, when we look at the region Asia Pacific, then we see that out of the 10 countries that are most exposed to climate change issues, 6 of these countries are located here in the Asia Pacific region. And there's one example that we have seen in the year 2011 in Thailand because of the floodings. This flooding had a tremendous impact not only on the economy, but also companies that were producing out of Thailand or out of Bangkok. So one astonishing fact when you look at the right-hand side is the economy, even 1 or 2 years after this disaster, has not fully recovered. So these climate change issues have a tremendous effect on economies, but also companies that have decided to locate their manufacturing in Asia Pacific, or in this case in Thailand. So that's a little bit about the issue that we see, the issue of rising energy demands while at the same time declining energy sources, the issue of climate change and how it impacts economies and companies. The second part of my presentation, I would like to spend a little bit on logistics. I give lectures also at SMU and talk to students and talk to other students also here in Singapore. And one thing that I realized when I talk about logistics is that logistics, the term logistics is used in many, many different ways. Logistics can mean a lot, and logistics is not only about transportation. Logistics can be the express delivery of documents and spare parts that need to be delivered very fast at the fastest transport means. It can also mean transporting the output of a manufacturing plant somewhere in Asia Pacific and transporting this weekly output via an ocean vessel or an aircraft to the manufacturing or to the consumer markets in Europe and Asia Pacific. So it's really big and bulky freight of products. But it can also mean the operation of warehouses or even transportation or even production lines. So transportation and logistics is a very big term and can include a lot of stuff. And transportation or logistics, and I myself have been in logistics for the last 14 years. And when I entered the world of logistics, I thought logistics is about just transportation. It's heavy, it's dirty, but I can tell you that that logistics is very dynamic. It's a very exciting industry. And when you look at the lower part of this slide, logistics is basically part of all industries. Logistics does business with companies in the technology industry, be it the big computer or laptop producers in the world, or even semiconductor producers, be it for engineering and manufacturing companies like, for instance, Siemens, be it for life science and healthcare companies, energy companies, or automotive companies. So as Professor Miller said in his speech, the world wouldn't work without logistics these days. So logistics is an integral component of people's lives. If we wouldn't have logistics around us, then of course we would also not have the pleasure of going into a grocery store and buying stuff. So all of us are exposed to logistics, although some of the things that logistics do are somewhat behind the curtain and are visible to you, but there are a tremendous amount of trucks, aircrafts and ocean vessels going around the world to give us and supply us with all the products and services that we enjoy on a daily life. One thing that I would like to share with you before we open the panel session is how complex supply chains are and how complex logistics is. This is just a slide that talks a little bit about the different transport modes. It's about air freight and ocean freight and road freight. And what you see is how complex these different transport modes are. I would like to draw your attention on the very right-hand column where it talks about the market fragmentation. And what you see is that the market is somewhat fragmented in air freight and ocean freight, but kind of manageable. But when you look at the road freight segment, you can see that it's highly fragmented. We are talking about hundreds of thousands of trucking companies that do business for us and transport goods and products for us. And there's one statistic for the Asia Pacific region that says that more than 90% of the trucking companies employ less than 3 employees. So it's a typical man on the truck company that we need to employ and need to engage with in Asia Pacific. To round this up, the session, finally, some words about the motivations of companies. Why do companies invest into sustainability and sustainable supply chain? There are various reasons, some of which are to comply with regulations. There are more and more governments who decided to implement regulations and laws that force companies to report CO2, report their energy consumption, report carbon emissions. Companies want to comply with these regulations. That's one strong driver. But reducing energy consumption, reducing CO2 emissions also means cutting costs. Every gram of CO2 equals some amount of fuel, and if you are able to reduce your fuel consumption, you're also able to improve your bottom line. And then on the right-hand side, more and more people feel that the good companies that we engage with, they're attracted to companies that have a strong and bold environmental strategy in place. So it's important, if you want to do business in the future, you have to have a sustainability and environmental agenda. Otherwise, you might end up with less business in the future. So these are strong drivers for companies to look into sustainability. And that's what I wanted to share with you, some facts and figures why the energy dilemma is an energy dilemma, and why companies are interested in getting their heads around it and trying to solve this issue. And I guess we are going to elaborate a little bit more on this during the panel session. And for now, I'd like to thank you for your attention.
Not very good at this. Okay, that's good. So, may I now invite Dean Miller, who will be the moderator for this morning, and the rest of our panelists to take their seats on stage. And while they get comfortable, let me introduce the panelists for this morning. So, ladies first, Ms. Roxanne Desmich is the Senior Director of Corporate Supply Chain Asia Pacific for Infineon Technologies, and has been heading the organization ever since 2012. The CSC organization encompasses functions along the whole Infineon supply chain, such as product master data, customer logistics management, warehouse customs export control, product planning and ramp-up, volume planning back-end, factory integration. Those functions have either a regional focus like warehousing or a global focus like product planning. Next, we have Mr. Robert D'Souza, who is the Executive Director and Chief Executive of the Logistics Institute Asia Pacific. Dr. D'Souza is a chartered engineer and serves on multiple industry, government, and academic committees. He is a Senior Fellow at NUS, National University of Singapore, and also holds adjunct professorship at the Georgia Institute of Technology in Atlanta and the City University in Hong Kong. Dr. D'Souza is also the Program Manager for A-STAR's National Urban Solutions, Logistics, and SCM Multi-Institution Program. Dr. D'Souza is well published and is an internationally sought after speaker, and was recently conferred the IEOM 2014 Distinguished Service Award. Last but not least, we have Mr. Kurt Russell, who is the Vice President of Information Technology, UPS Asia Pacific Region. In this capacity since 2010, he is responsible for the management and oversight of all information technology strategy initiatives, systems, processes, and IT personnel for the Asia Pacific region. Kurt also maintains an active role in expanding sustainability efforts for UPS in the region. So, may I invite Dean Miller to start the discussion. Thank you.
Stefan gave us a macro framing, and that's sort of important to have the context, so that he and I work on that. And now let's zoom in, because the way to really get good and interesting insights from panelists is to talk to them about what they do every day. So it's sort of a waste of time to ask them about what are people discussing at the World Economic Forum. It's not really a advantageous use of time to have them comment on something in The Economist or something like that. Let's tap into their expertise, which is sort of quite clearly related to what they do every day. All right, because that's what people know best. So, Kurt, let's start with you. And we said something about your background. We know UPS is a global firm involved in various modes of transport and involved in supply chain logistics and perhaps even other things we're not even aware of. And this issue about green logistics, bring it down to earth and help us understand what that specifically means for projects that you have last year, this year, things that you need to do and sort of challenges on your plate. And sort of bring it down to the particular so people can start to understand this as sort of real everyday work.
Okay, sure. Can everybody hear me okay?
Wait, are the mics
I
working?
think you need to turn it on.
How about this? Yes. Even I can do it.
Hello. Where's the button?
Okay.
Now.
Good morning, everybody, and thanks for the introduction. I'm Kurt Rousseau. I'm with UPS, and to answer your question, I want to give you a little bit of information and background about UPS. So UPS this year is going to be a 107-year-old company. We have over 400,000 employees across the globe. We're the third largest employer in the U.S. Does anybody know who number 1 and number 2 is? Walmart, exactly. Number 2 in the U.S. Nope. Well, government's an employer, but not a private company. McDonald's, it's McDonald's. So we operate over 95,000 vehicles across the world. We own over 200 aircraft, but we have charter relationships with over 300 more. And that makes us the world's 9th largest airline. In the US alone, we drive over 4 billion kilometers annually, delivering over 15 million packages a day to over 8 million customers.
15 million a day.
15 million a day. And during our peak season is around Christmas time. And usually around then, we've exceeded 50 million units a day. And it keeps going up. B2C keeps driving all these numbers up. And it also really complicates the whole role of logistics. When you think about delivering to companies, they have set operating hours, they have set delivery times, and we know where they all are. The customers change every day with these B2C shipments, so that's really putting a stress on the logistics sector, and it's only going to get more and get bigger. So when you add all those numbers up, for UPS, we've got a pretty big carbon footprint, as you can imagine. And we have to figure out ways, how do we get our hands around the size of that problem? How do we get our arms around the data? How can we manage it? How can we control it? And then ultimately, how can we reduce it?
Let me just ask you a quick question, Kurt. When you say we have a large carbon footprint, and let me sometimes asking the child's naive, why is that so? What is the problem? I don't mean sort of the socially acceptable answer. I mean, when you're sitting inside UPS, is it a compliance issue? Is it a cost and just cost of fuel issue? It's, I'm worried, about CO2 and are my kids going to have air to breathe? What are the different views of so-called the problem?
I think it relates around behavior, first of all, right? You have the behavior of your employees, and especially your drivers and your vehicles, and you've got drivers that have been around for 25 years. They know exactly in their minds how to drive this route. They've done it every day for 25 years. They know all their customers. But that's not actually the answer. The answer we've found is we can find data and different ways to optimize their route. And these drivers are coming back. We created a system called Orion. And Orion has just come online last year. It's got the algorithms for Orion alone are over 1,000 pages of code just for the algorithms. And that tries to take a look at over 250 million data points, satellite data and everything, and try to optimize the route. So that's one of the big problems today that we're really trying to fix.
So let me just make sure to sort of make sense of that. Because what you're saying is, based on sensing our everyday operations, that as we deliver and do our everyday work, that sort of leaves a digital trail of information. Increasingly, there's the ability to pick up that data, process it, and we can then use that to say, the next time we do this, there's a way to do it that's a little smarter, a little less resource intensive, right?
Exactly.
And that's sort of a win-win for everybody. I'm sort of making an assumption. The company's happy, it's a little less on the fuel bill. It's sort of good for the world, if you will. All right, so win-win for everybody. And what you're saying is, even though we have some of the technological capabilities.
But I've got to offer an apology to you and to everybody here. All the data and all the examples I gave are for the US only. We don't have the data that we need for Asia Pacific. We don't have all those sensors in all of our vehicles here. So we don't have the data points to make the kind of change that we want to make here in Asia.
Before going on to Roxanne, well, gee, Asia, there's even higher cell phone penetration. You know, it's not that people are technologically backwards here. And in some cases, you don't have legacy infrastructure issues. So explain to us, why not? Why not? It's sort of not necessarily obvious.
Well, I think it's the sophistication of the infrastructure and also awareness of people. I think the sustainability movement got started in Europe, and then it moved over to the US. The US got in line. And the one thing that drove the sustainability movement, well, I'll say two things. The consumer, the power of the consumer to demand change, and then all the organizations that jumped up, you know, nonprofit organizations that sprang up to, again, take the voice of the consumer and try to hold companies accountable. And that's what gave birth to the whole sustainability reporting and sustainability movement that started about 2 years ago.
So there's less external pressure within each of the individual Asian countries. And that's sort of obvious, we know it. Simple things like paper recycle, bottling recycling is active in some Asian countries. It's sort of like, why don't they have it together in some Asian countries? And as you say, some of the infrastructure, it's not that. Some of the both social, administrative, and technological infrastructure is not at the same degree of development as it is in Europe and the US.
Right. And you saw it in Stefan's slide earlier, right? For all the big multinational shipping companies, DHL, FedEx, UPS, we make up only 0.1% of all of the transportation trucking companies that are here in Asia. So how can we, how can one company, how can even a few companies go in and make a change, make an impact?
All right, let's stick with this theme before sort of going outside of the company's walls, sticking with this theme of what we're doing inside the company, right? And sort of giving some specific examples. And Roxanne, you're a company that's not a logistics service provider, but logistics are integral to what the company does, and the flow of things in, the flow of things out.
Yeah, this is correct.
Take it off.
Okay, yeah, everybody can hear me? Yeah. So correct, so I'm somehow a customer of Stefan or Code's company. We are a semiconductor company, so in the B2B business, and I like what Stefan was saying before about logistics. It's embedded in your daily life, so you might not recognize it. Semiconductor is a bit the same, so just if you would remember something from today, your life would be very miserable without us. Because no semiconductor, no iPad, no iPhone, no all your tools of your daily life, no electronic. So, yes, that's true. And we're talking about sustainability today, and this is very close to our hearts. It's energy efficiency is one of our business focus. And in this way, I am their customer, but somehow I'm also helping them to improve. To give you an example of the product we have, so if you would remember, or maybe you don't remember because you're very young, but a long time ago, your engine in your car is mainly controlled, so you turn on and the gasoline gets in, the engine gets out. And your car starts up. A long time ago, this was not optimized at all. Means all based on mechanic. Based on today's situation in the modern car and the more luxury brands, the amount of gasoline which is used to steer up the engine is calculated. And so you pull exactly what you need. And in this way, you optimize the consumption of gas. So in this way, your trucks becomes more efficient. So energy efficiency is one of our business focus, and I like one of my division heads message in one of our workshops recently. Says he was trying to explain to his younger daughter that He was going on business trip and she's not so happy about it. Then he told her, well, Daddy is traveling to save the world. Maybe it sounds big, but somehow this is what we feel we do. So in terms of employee motivation, we have energy efficiency embedded in our DNA, if I may say so. But the challenge is, on the one hand, our product helps to save, but on the other hand, we consume because we manufacture, we transport, and one of the big difficulties is to know, to be able to do a balance in your CO2 emissions. Means how much you save versus how much you consume. So we had a PhD actually in cooperation with Bob as well, a PhD student trying to help us out to simulate how our products help to save and how much they help to save based on what we sell, the market we sell to, versus what our manufacturing footprint is consuming. And in this way we are very proud because our CO2 footprint is hugely positive in the sense that we are saving on about 15 million tons CO2 per year. So we consume 1 million and our product helps to save 16. And of course, one of our first focus has always been on, in terms of continue to improve, is not only by the product we manufacture, but also how we manufacture. Because manufacturing is beyond transportation. Manufacturing is where we consume the most of our CO2. So we do have in our plants some activity in terms of energy efficiency, working together with our supplier to make the equipment more smart, so that we could say when the tool is idling, we turn it into a green mode so that it's not consuming as much as what it could do. When it comes to freight, we are very miserable in the sense that we are mainly transporting with the one which is polluting the most, which is air freight. Semiconductor is very light, and some of our technology would definitely not go with being transported by sea freight, and that's why all our transportation today is done via air freight. Nevertheless, maybe out of initially cost reason, could be, we started to investigate whether the finished products could go by sea. This is pretty new in our industry. If you look a little bit in the press, you will see more and more of electronic goes by sea. HP is definitely leading the way in this direction. On our side, in semiconductor, we also started, and we do some pilots in Asia. So though the data is a bit difficult to collect, but Asia is, from our perspective, usually more keen to explore new ways. And that's why we are also exploring some new method of transportation, and sea is the next in queue for us.
And so, Roxanne, to help the students and their faculty supervisors sitting here, to just highlight or reiterate some examples of specific things you're doing internally within Infineon. You mentioned trying to rethink where you should use which mode of transport. And it's easy to say, oh, well, just move everything to shipping versus air, and that will reduce the carbon footprint. But you can't make an easy statement like this, because in your industry, lead times are such that people can't always wait the long times for the time it would take to do it by sea. So one's got to balance the reality of the nature of your supply relationships with your customers and their inventory management, right? So you sort of have a constraint-based situation to work in.
So definitely lead time can be a constraint, but this is not the only reason we are not using sea today. Is also because up to very recently, the transport condition you have in a ship doesn't fulfill the humidity criteria, temperature criteria, which are needed to transport semiconductor. So that was definitely something which was blocking us in our way.
Yes. And that raises, and I'm not an expert in this, but what you just said implies an interesting trade-off, because what it says by spending more effort and almost certainly more energy to control the environment within the container on the ship, which would be a small net energy increase, if you will, it could, in a more macro sense, have a trade-off of shipping versus air. So it gets into just this kind of sort of interesting cost benefit, but not just financial, right? Because you have to look at, will the semiconductors arrive, will they be intact, what are all the implications of that? So this is one type of sort of, it would sound like deep study that you guys were both investigating as well as piloting.
So that's correct. So when we semiconductor is a cyclical industry, so we get into boom, then crisis, boom, and crisis all the time. So usually crisis is also opportunity, like you say in Chinese. And during the last crisis, that's when we started to look at sea freight. And we did a long study, so it took us from about 2 months, because we had, so it was many internal shipments, so from our factory to our distribution center in Singapore. We did one way back, retest the product back and forth, so that we could really verify that the product was intact. After 2 months of studies, and we could say, for this product category, we can validate and move safely through sea freight. And this is where now we have a small pilot line to keep it activated, so that we gather data, we gather experience, so that when we want to turn it up in a bigger scale, either during the next crisis or during the next opportunity which comes, we have data available.
And you mentioned one other initiative. I'm sure you're doing many, but of the two you just mentioned, you mentioned a special study